The member for Mawson.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I rise today to pay tribute to a former colleague of ours who left this place in December, a week after the last sitting, and we never really got to say goodbye to John Rau, the former member for Enfield and Deputy Premier and Attorney-General. And I just wanted to put on the record my thanks for the work that he did within the electorate of Mawson as Planning Minister in particular. And he came up with some very practical and great solutions for Kangaroo Island in particular, with the development of the Commissioner for Kangaroo Island. He took a great interest in how a place with 4,500 square kilometres and a population of just 4,500 people could get the sort of representation that it needed within government, within all three spheres of government. So he had great foresight there and got a group of people together who worked for quite some time to come up with the model, which was the Commissioner for Kangaroo Island. He also fought really hard to get the Kangaroo Island Airport upgrade, which was jointly funded by the federal government and state government for a combined $20 million contribution. So I want to thank him for those things. But also as Planning Minister, he took an idea that we came up with in the local McLaren Vale area to bring in Australia First legislation to protect the agricultural lands around McLaren Vale and also the Barossa Valley. And I think it was really important that as the march of urban sprawl rattled towards McLaren Vale and the wonderful agricultural lands that we have there, that that John, as Planning Minister, took a real interest in this and jumped in and put lines around the towns of McLaren Vale, McLaren Flat, Kangarilla and Wollonga, so that there could be no subdivision and gutter-to-gutter housing in between the towns. And I think that's something that the people of Mawson, particularly around that McLaren Vale wine region, will be ever grateful for. As Attorney-General, he took a tough line on bikies. He, I think, helped make South Australia a safer place with the sort of pursuit of good legislation. He was the busiest person in our government by a country mile when it came to bringing legislation through this place. And as Attorney-General, he oversaw many reforms. He reformed the return to work laws in South Australia and made them fairer for workers and better for workers, while also taking on board the views of employers as well. He was in this place from 2002 through to December 2018, and before he made it onto the front bench, he was busy working on reform to the real estate industry in South Australia. He was also, for some time, from 2004 through to 2010, the chair of the Natural Resources Committee. And whenever these committees hand down their findings, they always have a title, which is usually fairly boring, you know, the 23rd report of the committee. But John Rau thought it was a good idea to actually come up with some memorable names and some names that might help people who are searching through looking for relevant information on certain titles. So the Marine Scalefish Fisheries Summary of Evidence 2014 to 17 didn't just become the 125th report of the Natural Resources Committee, it was titled Good Things Come to Those Who Bait. An inquiry into the prawn fisheries management became trawling through the evidence. A report into foxes was hunting for the right solutions. When it came to Deep Creek, the first inquiry they did was called Deep Creek, a search for water. But when the public servants weren't giving them the right answers, they did a supplementary one called Deep Creek Revisited, a search for straight answers. And there's a trilogy here that might look a little familiar: Water Resources Management in the Murray-Darling. Now, Murray-Darling Basin, Volume 1 was called The Fellowship of the River. The second edition was The Two Rivers, and the third instalment was The Return of the Water. I want to thank John for all of his efforts in here, but also pay tribute to him as a great father to Jack, Olivia and Stella. And I think as we all know, that our time in Parliament is very important, but our time with our family is even more important, and they're with us forever. So thank you, John, for all of your efforts.